Hi and welcome. This week we'll be talking about life change, and this is such a huge topic. How do we change our lives? There are so many ways to take on this subject, so I chose to start from the beginning. Where does it all start? In the mind. So that's what I will be talking about today. One of the things that I've done in my life that I felt was a profound change was when I moved from my original country to a foreigner country, when I felt like I wasn't living the life that felt fulfilling and satisfying for me, and I wanted to try something that felt more in alignment with who I am. And I made that jump, that huge change, which of course took a lot of energy from me and also taught me a lot of things about myself and how I position myself in the world. And I have also done many different life changes throughout life. I have had many different kinds of jobs and lived in different places, and change and life change is a very dear topic to me. I think we grow a lot from change, and I think change is in our lives whether we want it or not. And most likely when we feel unfulfilled, there's always something to do about it. You can always take an action towards something that feels more fulfilling. I truly believe that we are the artists of this masterpiece, which is our life. So let's dive into it in today's video. I will be giving you 7 tips on how you can reframe your mindset around life change. So tip number 1 is to accept that your mindset needs adjustment. We are not used to recognize that the way that we think around things isn't the best one. We don't even think that there is something we can do to change our minds. I feel that people already are open to understand that, for example, having a straight posture helps prevent back pain, etc. And so therefore you need to make adjustments to your posture through maybe physiotherapy or yoga or Pilates or whatever. But it's not that often that we recognize, yes, maybe I'm not thinking in the right way about a certain subject. And when it comes to life change, thinking in the right way about the situation you have in front of you is crucial for you to take the right steps forward towards a positive change. So the first thing you need to do is to accept that your mindset around a particular change might need adjustment. Tip number 2 is to identify your automatic negative thoughts. Most likely you are having them around this particular situation that you have in hands, that you want to change, but you feel maybe stuck about this change. You don't know where to turn to, how to move about. And for sure you're having some automatic thoughts that are not so positive. And this can be, maybe I'm too old for this, or I'm not smart enough, or I'll never be able to have the life I want. Whatever is negative, pulling you down, is something to become aware of, so that you can transform those negative thoughts into something more positive and something that is supporting you, rather than keeping you stuck and keeping you with negative feelings about this change that you're longing for. Tip number 3 is one that I really like, which is to retell your story. So connected with these automatic thoughts, there's the story, how you tell the story of what you are going through, how you tell the story of how you came into the place where you are, and why you want to change. That is a whole story that you tell yourself and possibly to the people around you. And possibly in that story there's a kind of negative tone, maybe some criticism, maybe some despair, I don't know, but it would be interesting to put yourself outside from the perspective of, let's imagine that a friend of yours tells you that story. A friend of yours tells you, I would love to change to another country, but I feel that I'm too old for it. How would you, for example, how would you respond to that friend? How would you support that friend to take the steps, maybe to just investigate if it would be a feasible option to change countries or not? So usually we are so supportive towards our friends, and we see what's positive in a situation, we see what can be done, but when it's for us, we feel much more helpless. So it's interesting to do this exercise of putting yourself outside and looking and seeing, okay, how would I retell this story if I was a friend trying to help a friend? Tip number 4 is to understand your why. Why, truly why is it that you want to make this change? What is in you that is feeding this desire inside of yourself? Try to analyze, is it something that is coming from the past? Is this something that you fear about the future? Where is this desire coming from? This is very interesting to understand, because not only you can be more aware of what are the forces in you that create that sense of insatisfaction, so you can also work with those rather than just making this radical life change and then understanding that the unfulfillment is still there. So that is one way that this is a beneficial practice. But also to keep in mind, when you are very sure and very clear about your why, it's also much easier to continue taking the steps necessary to reach the change that you want to reach. So understanding your why and having it very clear throughout the whole process of change is incredibly helpful. Tip number 5 is to be wise with your willpower. If the change that you're trying to accomplish requires willpower, then it's good to know that this is a finite resource, and so therefore needs to be used wisely. So your brain does have the capacity, of course, to resist temptation and to maintain a certain amount of discipline. But if the temptations are too often, this willpower will eventually fade, and it will be harder and harder to maintain it. So therefore, the best really is to try to keep yourself free of temptations in your environment as much as possible. Or if this change doesn't involve this kind of like resisting temptation kind of thing, perhaps it's just about making something happen, then the best really is to make your environment set for that behavior you want to see happen. So one example that always comes to my mind is, if you want to go run in the morning, then you should have your running shoes and equipment straight away in front of you, so that you don't even have to think about go to choose the clothes and so on. You just put the clothes on and you go out and run, you see. So there was not much willpower used there, because it was right there in front of you, ready for you to go. Tip number 6 is to think small. So while it might be fantastic and give you a sense of adventure to think big in terms of life changes, when it comes to actually producing that change, it's really good if you think small. What is the next tiny step that you would make towards that change? And then step by step, tiny step by tiny step, the big change can happen. But when we think about the big change, we often feel overwhelmed, and it's much, much harder to make any movements when we are feeling overwhelmed, because it's just it's a blocking energy. This overwhelmed is a blocking energy. So tiny step by tiny step, a lot can be accomplished. Tip number 7, the last one, and one that I really, really like, is to embrace failure. This is so powerful, because every time that we fail, instead of going down that rabbit hole of, oh, I am useless, what am I doing? It's really important that instead of punishing yourself for failure and feeling that you're worthless. It's important that you are proud of yourself for failing, because every time you fail, it means that you are putting yourself under the circumstances that are helping you to grow and ultimately are making you a stronger person that will endure more and accomplish more. So failure is really something great. Yeah, that is it for this week's video. I hope you liked it. If you did, I would be very happy if you would give me a like. Maybe you want to subscribe, maybe you want to share this video with someone. If not, I see you maybe next week. Next week I will be talking about successful mindset strategies, more specifically optimism versus pessimism. And if this is something that interests you, see you next week. Thank you for watching.